Well, what's happening, everyone? You know, this is your girl, Tracie L James, and I am back one more time. You know what I do every single time. I bring you amazing women entrepreneurs who are willing to take a step away from all of their responsibilities to share with you. So today, let me tell you, we're doing something really special today. I am talking to sisters, and I don't mean just like African-American sisters. I mean, literally biological sisters who are in business together. We are talking to the founders of Sweethoney, a lifestyle and creative brand. And I cannot wait for you to meet these two amazing women. So help me welcome to the stage, y'all, NaKeitra Burse and her sister, NaToya Sanders. Welcome so much, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So, you know, when I started my search for sisters or our family members in business together, I didn't care if it was sisters or cousins, moms and daughters, but I wanted to do a conversation around women who are in business together who happen to be related. Because sometimes people will tell you that family and business don't mix. So I want to have some real conversations around that today. So just to kind of get us started, I just want to give you both an opportunity to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Keitra, I'll let you go first.
Okay, well, look, age first. I'm the oldest, but I'm NaKeitra, and I'm actually the owner of 6 Dimensions. So NaToya has Sweethoney and I have 6 Dimensions, but our work crosses, we work together on both businesses. And so our work really intersects every single day. Of course, grew up in Mississippi, still here in Mississippi. My work is primarily in public health. So I have a public health research, development, and practice company. And we do a lot of work around maternal health. We've developed or produced a documentary around maternal health, which NaToya was also in, and she does speaking engagements with me on that as well. And we're just excited to be here today.
So,
awesome. NaToya?
Yeah, so thank you. As NaKeitra said, we kind of both of our businesses overlap in such an ironic way when you kind of look back at the experiences that we've shared. But mine pretty much started through my love of coffee, my love of quotes and scriptures. And I just remember one day thinking, how can all of this connect? And NaKeitra actually gave me the idea, and she's like, sell your mugs. She's like, if you're trying to get, inspirational wording out to people and you're trying to share your love of coffee with others, then why not put both of those together? And so I always tell people that it's more than a mug. I really want them to get the messaging behind the mug. But the mug and the coffee is an added plus. So it's been nice. You say don't mix family, business and family. And there are challenges, but I think that the positives definitely outweigh the negatives, and I can't wait to see what the future holds if she lets me continue on the ride.
Well, you know what? I think that is so awesome. And, it's one of those things that in business, being a entrepreneur and you're partnering with anyone can be challenging. I find that even with a lot of my clients, that when they have partners, oftentimes when I'm working with them, I'm actually kind of navigating and kind of negotiating and operating as a mediator in those spaces where they have those disagreements, because they're going to happen. So what I want you to do right now, before we dive too deep into the business part of it, this is a question I love to ask people because it helps me really get an understanding of, who you are. So going past the titles, going past the names of your businesses, why are you so passionate about sharing these gifts with the world?
I'd say for me, life is difficult. You know, every day is a challenge, and if we're not careful, then we will let all of those negatives consume us. And so, you know, sometimes your outlet is just getting and encouraging. I know how it feels when you just get a text message and says, "Hey, I just want to let you know I'm thinking of you." And you know, we'll say, "Oh gosh, like how did you know I was having a tough day?" You know, or something. And so to me, that's what it's all about, is really encouraging and uplifting others, because we have enough negative going on around us, you know. And so if we can focus on the good, then I want to share that. And I think that we are all here to live a life of abundance, and sometimes we just need that little gentle reminder.
Yeah, and I think for me, I have always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I've always like working in health, public health in that way. And so I've just been over the past, well, all my life trying to figure out how to merge those two together. And yeah, I've been on the journey up and down for a long time. And I think it's more about freedom and innovation for me when it comes to business, and you know, no matter what business it is that I'm embarking on, it's really about freedom to think the way that I want to think, and in a way that supports community, and just creating the world that I want to live in, and creating the workplace that I want to live in, or that I want to work in. And so that's really what drives me daily to keep at business. And just being an entrepreneur, there's I think we just have to like paint a good picture of what freedom looks like in entrepreneurship, you know. And people look at freedom in a way of, I get to take off when I want to take off. I get to, you know, come in the office late, but that's not, to me, that's not the freedom that it affords me. It's the freedom of thought, the freedom to like evolve in leadership, and the freedom to like lead people and let them think on their own. And so that's what I'm most passionate about when it comes to the business aspect.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. You two have amazing hearts. All right. I'm loving the connection, and how the truth of the matter is, in many ways, you two seem to kind of balance each other.
Mm-hmm.
And in business, if you are going to partner, you need to partner with someone that's not exactly like you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, even when we're hiring people to work for our businesses, we make the mistake of hiring people who are like our mini me's.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about you, I don't want to work with me. Do you want to work with you?
That won't
Right.
work. Nope.
You know, so it's one of those things that I think, in listening to you talk about why you're passionate about being in business, they balance each other. It's like the yin to the yang. And so tell me about your journey to this point as an entrepreneur. You know, what has been the main thing you've had to overcome to get to this point in your business?
I'll start with that. So I did say I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So every job that I've been in, I take these little pieces and say, I wouldn't do that. Or I could do that better. Or I don't like how they're leading me. And so it's like these little pieces in jobs that I take. And like I've always had this vision for where I want to work. And so I take that with me. And so I have all these notebooks that I write in. So over the years, I've just continued to write and write and write and write. And so in 2016, when I did get in a position I was finishing my doctorate, and I said, okay, it's time for me to really start, you know, rolling with the business. In 2012, I went ahead and registered with the Secretary of State. I wasn't doing so much with the business, but I knew what I wanted to do, you know, forward thinking. And so I registered with the Secretary of State. And during that time, I was doing like personal training and boot camps. And so and I started in that. I liked fitness. And so I would go work at fitness centers. So I worked at several fitness centers, different business models of fitness centers. And like I had a notebook of what they looked like. And so I remember working at the last fitness center I worked at here in this area. And there was personal trainer model. And so the people would come in and pay $200 for like 2 or 3 sessions of personal training, but the trainer would get paid $20 per hour. And then there was this model where you had to work up to get to be a trainer. So I started like working the front desk. Now I had my trainer certification, but I had to work the front desk. I had to do all these other things before I could get to this $20 an hour to train people, but they were making the $180. And I was like, it didn't make sense to me. And so I was like, oh, I'm just gonna do this on my own. So I went and bought a whole bunch of weights. I went and bought a whole bunch of mats. And so I started at my apartment complex. We had a tennis court. I got a few of my friends. I was like, hey, let's try this boot camp thing. And it started working out. And so then I said, well, let's move. And so we moved to the park that was right next door to my apartment complex. And so, they would just start telling people, and I go back home and do them for free. And so, it caught steam in that way. And so when I realized how much, not just money that I could make doing that, but the impact that I could have on the women's lives simultaneously, I was like, oh, I got something good here. So I'm working, I get up and do boot camp. And then it was even to me about continuing to like hone in on that model. So when the wintertime comes, people don't want to be outside. How can I figure that out? So I started making partnerships with people so I could go and, use their facilities. And so I just continued to evolve in that. And so when I left my job in 2016, I had a family at that time, husband and 1 child. And so I wanted to make sure that I could continue my responsibilities with the family. So I saved a lot of money, paid off a car, and did all those things and started my business. And so when you talk about what is kind of some of the ups and downs, well, I left my job in March of 2016, had contracts, had things kind of in place. In October of 2016, a local university asked me to come work part-time. And, it was a decent salary. So I was like, oh, well, this is consistent salary. So I should go ahead and do that. But when I got there, my personality is I'm gonna give it my all. And I was having a very hard time creating balance between my business and the part-time job. So I'd be there on days when I wasn't supposed to be there. I'd be working later or earlier than I was supposed to work. It would intersect with my contracts. And that went on for like 4 years, literally until last year during the pandemic. And they phased out my position. I was planning to quit, but when they phased out my position, it worked out even better. And the day that ended was like when things really changed. And I think that was a big turning point for me. But one other really important, I think, down that I wanted to mention is it's people that you work with. Now, I've created a lot of really good relationships in the community, but it's still sometimes having a fight as a Black woman. I had a contract and, working it, did excellent work. And something happened with them internally and they did not want to pay me. And so I had to go in and speak to the person that was over the department. And when I spoke to him, a Black man, and he said, we can either talk on the phone or I can, you can come in face to face. And I was like, I'm going face to face because I want you to look me in my eyes. And so I got in there and, he told me, one thing he told me was, even if I did have the money, I wouldn't pay this amount of money for this. And I was like, okay, but I've already done the service and I already charged you. So you're going to pay me, that's beside the point, but that stuck with me. And the other thing that he told me was, I'm the only reason that you have a foot in the door here as a Black woman. And so I was like, I don't need you or this contract anymore, and I told him and I looked him in his face and I said, this is not making me rich. So, and it wasn't about the money, but it was about the principle to me for you to know that, this is, I don't have to have this. Yeah, it helps, but I don't have to have this. And not a contractor, you're not my employer or anything, not a contract. So those things stick with me continuously. How, you know, it's hard for us as Black women still to even make a foot in the door. And sometimes, and I've had great experience with our community, great, but sometimes there's that one, then that is what sticks with me probably daily. I know that was long. Sorry about that.
No, I definitely understand that. I mean, I have worked in business since actually even before I graduated from college. So since, oh God, I'm dating myself, 1992. I consider myself actually really entering business, getting out of the fast food waiting tables type positions. And, you know, one of the things I thought about as you were talking about having to fight as a Black woman is it's an unfortunate thing that we don't have advocates that tend to look like us more often than not. My first experience with having a Black female manager, those of you who have watched me for a while, you know this story. But basically she threw me under the bus, said she didn't tell me to do something that she definitely told me to do to try and save herself. And had it not been for the other assistant manager who heard her tell me, he actually spoke up for me. I would not have expected a white male to speak up for me, but he turned out to be my advocate and he taught me a lot. But I was looking to this woman, Black woman, to be my mentor. And when I walk into a space and I am talking with a Black man, a Black woman, and I can tell that you're not my advocate, I can tell there's a level of, you should just be happy I'm talking to you. And I think just in speaking to that, we have to understand that when we per se make it, it's not just for you. It's not just for you. Nobody's asking for a handout. We're just asking to be treated with respect. If I'm contracted for a job, I expect to be paid what I was contracted to do. So I definitely feel that ultimately, I mean, completely in so many ways. So NaToya, what's been your experience to this point?
You talked so long, I'm glad you recapped the question for me. No, but one thing she didn't tell you is that 5 a.m. boot camp, at the time we were living together. I had graduated college and we were living together, and she would make me get up every morning and come to her boot camp. I'm like, that wasn't in the contract. We didn't discuss that. But my journey to entrepreneurship has been completely different. So as Keitra said, she always wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was never on my radar. I always, every time she would bring it up, I told her I'm perfectly fine going to work at 8, leaving at 5, and not having any work outside of that. The more she would push it, the more I tell her, like, I'm fine. I don't have to do that. And then one day I was like, well, if I could sell these mugs and it be an additional source of income, then why not try it? So that was in 2015 when I tried it. And when I say our paths have been different, okay, so started in 2015, launched, did great. 2016, my husband and I had our first child, Jordan. And Jordan was born at 25 weeks. So everything was at a standstill. We spent 8 months in the hospital, 2 hours away from home. And so, of course, business wasn't going at the time because work wasn't going at the time. You know, my focus was Jordan. And after 8 months in the hospital, Jordan passed away. And so, again, business wasn't my focus. It was grieving. So fast forward to me getting back to work. I really couldn't get back in the swing of things at my job. I just turned 30. And I left my career at the university and I started working at a coffee shop. And I'm like, talking about midlife crisis at 30, but I truly believe to this day, sometimes I think, had I not stepped away from my job, where would I be? But then I also think, had I not stepped away from my job, where would I be? And I don't know that answer. So I know for a fact it was best for my mental health for me to step away at the time and be able to grieve properly. So when I stepped away and started working at the coffee shop, it gave me, as NaKeitra said, kind of, being able to get an eye in and seeing actually, how the coffee business worked and how that side of things work. Again, because I'm thinking, okay, I love coffee. I drink coffee every morning, but man, this is a true business. Let's see how things operate on this side, outside of merchandise. And so it just gave me a new perspective. And I just started working, more on my business. And then life happened again. And, we had a miscarriage at 20 weeks. And so again, it's been, when we talk about up and down, the business has been up and down, but the business has been up and down because life has been up and down. But once again, going back to what I stated before, we have so much negative around us. Let's focus on the positives. So let's try to continue building. And honestly, my business helps me. I hope it helps other people, but it helps me more. And I think that's one of the main things that keep me going, because I have always been a lover of quotes. I've always been a lover of scriptures. I journal all the time. I just literally I could probably just write a book of my favorite quotes, that I have. But those are the things that keep me going. And so when I'm posting something on my social media, hoping to encourage someone else, it's really because I may be struggling in that moment. And I'm talking to myself, but hoping that it can reach someone else. I distinctly remember one day I was just going on and on and on. And my sister said, didn't you just post about like calming down and taking a moment? I'm like, don't throw that back in my face. Like, give me this time to have that, But so I'm in a very I'm in a building phase with the business, because I feel like we just got back on our feet, even though we've been existing since 2015. But I'm happy about it. Every single day it's not great. Every single day is not just a complete grind, but every single day I'm building. And I think as long as I'm building, as long as I'm making an impact, and as long as I'm staying consistent, then that will pay off. So that's been my biggest nugget, is really staying consistent through everything, because guess what? In another year, something else is going to happen. 5 years from now, something else is going to happen. So what can I do to keep myself going, through life's ups and downs?
Wow. Now that is awesome. Without a doubt, I understand the ebbs and flows with business, because life does happen. In 2018, I had to press pause on my business because my mom had a stroke. And it was catastrophic because she wasn't found until over 24 hours after we think she collapsed. It's an assumption. And I am her only child. And as a result, it's on me to be caregiver. So I am sandwiched between my mom and my 16-year-old son. So when it comes to business, it's okay to press pause. And I think sometimes, especially as Black women, I don't know if you find this, is that people seem to want to make you think that you got to just keep going because you can do it. You're strong. You're a Black woman. You got to just keep pressing. But you brought up something really, really important. I want to kind of ask you both about this. In that space of your mental health, that space of doing that self-care. Just recently, we saw a prominent Black woman, Naomi Osaka, say, I'm out. This is for my mental health. This is for my space. Do you find that people don't want to give you that space to be able to take care of you?
I feel like you have to you just have to create that space for yourself. You know, I just released a mug, protect your peace, you know, at all at all costs, because whether they want to give you that space or not, at the end of the day, it's you, you know, and you, when you go home, it's you and your mental health. I think that society has put us or put Black women on that kind of strong Black woman, you know, pedestal, and saying that, you know, yeah, you can withstand, you got to keep going. But I think again that's where we step in and say, no, I don't. Who says that I had to keep going? Who says that I can't take a minute to breathe? You know, and I think the more we normalize that, the more people will be more willing to do the same.
Yeah, and I'll agree with that. I think a big thing that I have been working on for myself over the past couple of years is really, you know, freedom is one thing, but liberation is another. And like the system that we live in is, you know, it's made for us to grind all the time, you know, and that's especially when it comes to entrepreneurs. If you get caught up in the social media part of it, it's like you're supposed to be working 24/7, no sleep, this and that. And I can't function like that. I got two little bitty kids. So but for me, I do have a hard time creating boundaries just in my life, period. Whether it's with family, whether it's with business, and you know, you don't want to turn anything down, and people don't always even know what's going on in your life. And even if they do, they, you know, sometimes don't truly understand what you have going on. And so the two ways that I'm trying to work through that is one, my therapist, you know, I do therapy faithfully, but the other one is that's how me and NaToya are now really joined at the hip. So one day I was like, my calendar is just out, you know, it's insane. I keep adding stuff, and you know, I needed to create some boundaries with my calendar. And so now she's really handling my calendar. And it is, I think we're still in the phase where she's learning my, like the clients that are like high priority, and she's learning like what I do on a weekly basis. So I figure it'll take us a couple of weeks just to kind of get moving in that manner. But I can say that even now that helps me a lot. And it's also a buffer, so that, you know, when I don't want to say no, somebody else can say no for me, you know. So that has been very helpful. And I do believe, and I work with a professional coach as well. And those are things that my professional coach works with me on, is like making sure I'm delegating responsibilities out in a way that I should. And so the past couple of weeks, what I've been working on, like on my administrative day, is just trying to figure out, okay, we got all these projects. How do we streamline it better? And how do I free up myself to, you know, to write? Because this summer was supposed to be writing for me. And so that's all that, you know, I figure it'll take us till June, the end of June, to get that together. But I think that's what has been helping me, just kind of create those boundaries and protect my mental health. And I picked up skating as a hobby. Now I have all kind. I changed hobbies, like, you know, I was coloring a couple months ago. Now I was doing puzzles one time. Now I'm skating. So you know, just picking up different hobbies too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm definite advocate for going to counseling, going to therapy. I resisted it for a very long time. But after my divorce, I was literally so messed up. I had insomnia for several years. Like if I go back and look at memories from Facebook from like 12, 13 years ago, I literally would be up all night just on social media. And that's ridiculous. But after my doctor wanted to put me on medication, and I was like, I don't want to take a pill to go to sleep. So I decided to try out the counseling. So I'm gonna give it a chance. And I go back on a regular basis. I go get what I like to call my tune up. Just to kind of keep myself in that space. And honey, I'm a colorer. I have coloring books. Okay, y'all, I'm just gonna be very, very honest. I'm gonna pull the veil back for a moment, y'all. I have Barbie coloring books, Disney princess coloring books. I like those are the only coloring books I like, because I like to color the clothes.
Yeah.
And I have my own box of 64 Crayolas.
You got the good ones.
Okay. I have the big box. Nobody else can use it. I have other crayons here that my granddaughters can use when they come and they want to color with me. They can't use my 64 box. That's my box. So, but those are the things I will do to slow my mind down. And actually, I don't know about you. Do you find that when you take that moment, that step away just to kind of slow your mind down, that when you come back to work, you're more productive?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you know, you know, when you're so like, I have a habit of being on 10 all the time. And I have anxiety really bad. And so if I take a walk or work a puzzle, I love flowers. So I'm trying to grow stuff, but I really just had to let go of the fruits and veggies and focus on my flowers. And I love it. And I never would have thought that would be a hobby of mine, but it relaxes me just being outside, you know, and planting flowers, or seeing, like, I was telling my husband the other day, I'm like, I thought my orchid died and my orchid is growing new flowers. And I'm like, that's the happiest I've been in a long time. And I'm like, a flower? But I'm like, yes, because to me, it's something blooming life. And it's something that I have nurtured, you know, that's blooming life. And so it just makes me happy. So figure out whatever makes you happy, do it.
Yeah. You know, and sometimes that thing that makes me happy is a Little Debbie snack cake, but
and that's fine too.
And you know, I have found that being in my 40s, I'm almost 50, y'all. So being at this point where my body's doing some things I don't want it to do, that I will try to do what I used to do to lose weight, and it causes me to gain more weight.
Yeah.
So now at this point, it's like, okay, you know what? I want a dip cone from Dairy Queen. I'm going to go get that dip cone from Dairy Queen, and then it's done. It's out my head, and I can come home and I can take care of me at that point. Then I can work out. I can eat a salad. I can have some salmon, you know, I can eat that spinach and stuff. But at the same time, when I try to not do those things, do that little bit of stuff that makes you happy. Don't binge, don't go crazy, but just have that moment. And I'm learning to embrace those small moments a whole lot more, because I am so anti-grind. Because my grandmother always taught me, when you use a word, understand what it really means.
Yep.
So the word grind means to break down.
Right.
To nothing. Do you really want to grind yourself? You want to grind your business? No. So I'm with you on that. Not wanting to do that. You got to take that time to press pause. So it seemed like you both have taken an opportunity to learn from the different jobs you've had. And so I understand that I actually am writing a book that I actually started writing sitting in the call center for a company that shall remain nameless. And I call it the commandments of internal customer service. Taking care of the person who takes care of your customer.
Yeah.
And you know, I call it the anti-experience. But kind of share with me one thing that you have taken away from one of those positions that you felt like, I absolutely have to add this to my business. And then give me the opposite. What was one thing that you were like, I'm absolutely not doing that?
You go ahead, Keitra.
Okay. So the one thing that I have to add, I think it's more about like processes and making sure that like we create these deliverables that have to happen. And that's one thing that that goes both ways. I take that and take it away, because like one position, we created beautiful processes, but people didn't always adhere to those. And so I think that was one thing. And then even so, in my nonprofit position, I was a director of a center, and it was the trust. I think my CEO at that time, she trusted me to run that office. And I try to make sure that the people that I work with, I trust them. I try not to bring you on if I cannot trust you. And so I think that's the one thing. And of course, what I never want to take with me is micromanaging and like trying to figure out what people are doing during the day. I think that's just way too much oversight. And to be creative and to be able to think and to be innovative, something might come to you at midnight, so I don't want to take that with me. I can remember working at one position at a state agency, and my first day going there, so I was walking in the door and I didn't realize, like, and I'm talking like fresh, this is my first time working in this type of environment. And so the person before me didn't hold the door. I was like, what's the problem? Why these people like this? But it was like, you have to scan your badge so you can go in and it clocks your time. Then you have to go and write down the time that you got to your desk. And I was like, oh, no. I called, my husband and I were dating at that time. And the first day I called him, I was like, oh, I'm not going to be here long. Like that, it was that one thing about, employment that bothered me. And even I got this position one time when I was leaving my job, and it was a work from home position, and it was decent pay and everything. And you had to be set up at a computer all day. And I was like, oh no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do it. And I don't want to put any strains on people that I don't want to do. And so, like, being able to create that type of open and trusting environment is really important to me.
For me, I'm very detail oriented, in a sense, for some things, I should say. But I have to have structure. Like, I have to have structure. I cannot stand if there is something that we're supposed to work on and it's just kind of like free reign. Like, if we don't have deadlines, if we don't have, any type of outline, and I try not to, I'm like that in my personal life too. If I'm going on a trip, I like structure, but, because to me, like, how are we going to measure like how we get there? If we're just everybody's working on one thing, we don't even, like, communication lacking. It just structure and communication. Something else, let's see. So boundaries. And I think Keitra touched on that a little with like micromanaging. I think that people work best when they are allowed to be themselves. And so, I've always said, if I'm ever in a leadership position with employees and people need time off, it's not my business to ask what you're doing on that day off. I don't care if you're going and get a manicure or a massage on that day off. That is your personal time off. I don't need to call you. I don't need to email you. I don't expect anything from you. And so, I always make it a habit, if I'm going to be out of the office, I make sure that my students are taken care of. And I'm like, you never have to worry about my students when I'm off, but when I'm off, do not contact me. I will get to you when I'm back, in the office. So just really having a plan, but also just establishing boundaries with, your colleagues and coworkers. I think it's super important. And people will give you their all when they know you give them that freedom and flexibility to be themselves.
Absolutely. I'm with you. You're both 100% on that. You can't really get the full capabilities from your employees when you micromanage, when you don't trust them to do their jobs, when you don't create a space that they can really work in and feel that they're heard and valued. I think that is super important. So, why do you love working with your sister?
Oh, let me see. She keeps me on my toes. As much as we used to fight when we were younger, I can truly say, like, she helps me be a better business person, a better entrepreneur, I should say. Because when she says she has ideas and she's like, oh, ideas may come to you at midnight, that's her. And I'm like, can we wait until the next day and discuss this brilliant idea? Like, I'm in bed by 9 o'clock. I don't want to talk about business at 9. But that's her. And so, it's, although we are night and day in some instances, we came from the same mother, we came from the same father, and we have so many similarities, you know. And so to me, it's nice being able to look and like, wow, like I'm being able to build this with my sister, you know. But she knows when to reel me in. But she really makes me think outside of the box, like stuff that I would never think about. I may have these ideas and she's like, okay, so how you gonna do that? And I'm like, well, excuse you, aren't you supposed to be like supportive, you know, of me? And she's like, yeah, but it's also my job to let you know you can't just up and do this. You got to think about A, B, and C before you jump there. So, long story short, but that's why.
Awesome.
I'll agree with that, but I'll also just add the ability to be like brutally honest. And, you know, you can't always do that with everyone. Um, you know, so if I say some bad words or, you know, call her out of her name, or she does the same to me, it's not, you know, that's how we talk to each other. And it's, you know, it's in love and it's in fun most of the time. So I think that's really important to me, just to be able to be brutally honest about everything. And, you know, like when I'm out of order, she'll say it. Or like she called me the other day and was like, who is such and such on your calendar? I was like, and I'll be honest, the other day somebody sent me a message and asked me, could they get on my calendar? And I was like, hey, my sister handling my calendar. Do you want to meet after hours? So I don't
Because I was gonna ask, who is that? I'm like, if you want me to establish boundaries, then you need to play by my rules, or other like this won't work.
Yep.
I'm sorry, y'all. I love it. I absolutely love it. But see, I think that's the beauty in the fact that you are sisters. And when you hit points where you need to say those things to each other, it comes from a place of love. I always tell people that if I can feel that you love me, in that moment, you're providing the correction, the direction, then guess what? I receive it that much better. But when I feel like the criticism is coming from a place of insecurity, or the fact that you don't like me, or you're trying to bring me down, I'm not going to receive that.
Right.
I'm just not going to receive that. So I was watching the other as each of you were speaking, and it was so fun to it was just like, yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. Because that's the thing about being sisters that is just so beautiful, is the fact that you can be honest with each other. You can go through those ups and downs of life together, and you can weather the ups and downs of business together, because she got your back. You may be trying to not deal with them boundaries, but she got your back. And vice versa. You know, she's got these ideas, these things she wants to do, but you want to make sure she's prepared. You're going to outline these things, say, hey, you need to think about ABC before you do this. That's love. And and ultimately what you're going to end up building is some amazing things separately, but also together, because you got each other's back, and ain't nothing else like that. Nothing at all.
I think that's the big thing, is knowing, like, at the end of the day, like, she has my best interest at heart. So even if she's like, no, I don't think that's a good idea, I may go and pout for about 30 minutes, but like, then I'll think about it and I'm like, okay, she was right. Like, she's not going to steer me in any wrong direction. And with that being my sister, like, I can fully trust that, you know, whereas you may not get that elsewhere.
Cool. So as we begin to wrap this up, you all know I love to provide you with some advice from these amazing women. And hopefully you've been taking your notes and gleaning from this conversation. But I'm going to ask you ladies to share, just as entrepreneurs, what is a key piece of advice you would provide to other women entrepreneurs in building their businesses?
I'll go first because it's going to be very simple. Be true to yourself. That's it. You know, she mentioned earlier social media, and you can look on there and see this person doing X, Y, and Z. Be you. Stick to your values, who you know you are at your core, and I truly believe everything else will follow. So just stay true to you.
And so mine was really the same. Mine was never compromise your purpose. I just told someone this yesterday. She was saying, well, how do you continue to do what you want to do when people are trying to pull you in another direction? And I was like, if it doesn't fall along your purpose, then, don't step away from it. And sometimes that's very uncomfortable. Like as your business starts to get steam, people will say, oh, well, could you do this? Or can you do that? You probably can do it. And you probably have done it before, but you may just not want to do that anymore. And that's okay. And you can say no. You don't have to compromise your purpose for money. And I did have to learn that the hard way because, when it was just me as a consultant, it was like, oh, well, here I'm piecemealing all these small contracts together to try to get just one salary, but I'm working like a dog. And then when you take it and look at it and say, okay, I did all that work for that little bit of money. And so you don't compromise your purpose and, know your worth. And that takes a while too, to say, no, I'm not going to do that for that amount of money, but it takes a lot to get there. And I think we as Black women, we have a hard time with that, just stating our price. That's the biggest thing that I hear from people every day is trying to figure out your price and what you're worth. But one day I was doing a speaking event and I gave my speaker fee. And she was like, oh, okay, that's modest. And she wasn't saying it in a bad way or anything. She was just like, oh, like we can do that. And then in my head, I was like, okay, that's modest. Let me go on and up this up a little, take this up a little bit. Like she meant absolutely no harm. It was an amazing, interaction that we had, but that did get me to thinking, okay, well, maybe you can take your price up a little bit. So, and people will pay for it. So I think never compromise your purpose and just, know your worth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you, in dealing with my clients, when I take a look at people's price lists, I don't care if it's a physical product or a service, I'm always sitting there going, let's talk about what goes into you creating this. Mm-hmm. What right. goes into you providing this service? Mm-hmm. What education did you go through? What experience do you have? And after I get through asking all of those different things, their eyes are sitting there like, I hadn't considered all of that in the price. I was just thinking about how much money I needed to make to pay my bills. Yep. So when you get out of that space of just surviving and you get in this space yep. of really wanting to thrive with your business, that's when you find yourself in that space where you need to be mm-hmm. to be able to be you, to focus on your purpose, to be able to know your worth. And without a doubt, ladies, I truly see that you both value who you are and you are pursuing your purpose in the things that you do. And I love that you're doing it together. Mm-hmm. I love that. Absolutely yeah. love that. So as we wrap up, one last question, y'all. One last question. So do you advise people who are related to each other to go into business together? And if so, what advice do you have?
You can go, Toy.
Oh gosh, that's it depends. Honestly, it depends on their relationship. If we know that we all have family members that we are rocky with. And I think someone said before, all skin folk ain't kin folk, or all kin folk ain't skin folk or something. But that's the truth. Like it literally depends on your relationship. I know for a fact, I know how we were both brought up. I know what struggles we went through. I know what, things that we have overcome. And so I know that we will do well together. But there are some aspects of business that we could not work together in, because not that neither one of us is capable, but I may not have that passion and she may not share that passion. And so I think it depends on not only your relationship with that family member, but what you're truly passionate about. I offer a service and a product. She offers a service. And yeah, there is overlap there, but her education and background is completely different than mine. I'm in marketing and business, and so I can't give a yes or no. I literally can say it depends on that relationship.
And I'll agree with that too. And I think it also depends on where you are in life. We've done stuff for many, many years. Even back, we used to do a scholarship back at home. And so, my thought process was A, B, C, D. And whereas I'd be up, when we were living together, I'd be up at night working on it. She wasn't. And I'm like, okay, why are you not up? Why are you not working on it? And so, but I think it has taken us growing to where we are now to understand, our differences and how each of us works differently. I may wake up over the night and pick up my phone and put a note in of an idea or, something like that, where she'll just wait until the next day. And that's okay. That's absolutely okay. So I think it does depend on like where you are in life at that time and what both of your goals are. So, everybody at that point has to be into a business mindset in some way. You don't have to be on the same level, but you have to have the same end goal.
That's true, because in college and fresh out of college, that wasn't my goal. Like, that was what she wanted, but it wasn't what I was focused on. Like, I'm still trying to figure out who am I and what am I about to do with my life,
Yeah, absolutely. I love that response, because anything in business is not a black or white situation. There's grays in all of it, because being in business requires a certain skill set, mindset, willingness. All of these different things go into it. And unless you are really confident in that space, no matter whether you're out here by yourself or you're working with someone else, it's still, you might make it, but you got to be willing to put in the work necessary to make that happen. And, this is my third business venture, most successful to this point. And so you got to be willing to continue to persevere and figure out, where is it that I really, really belong, that's in line with my purpose. So ladies, I want to give you an opportunity to let the audience know how to connect with you and your company. So we'll also include the links in the description below, y'all. Don't forget, but just tell them how they can connect with you on social media, and also share your website.
Yeah, so on Instagram, I'm at NaToya Sanders, NaToya Sanders. Facebook, NaToya Sanders. My business is at _Sweethoney, and that's SWEETHONEYS.
And on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram, at 6 Dimension. Well, no, at 6dim. So it's at SIXDIMS on everything.
Awesome, ladies. I want to thank you all for taking some time out of your busy schedules to connect with me and share your journey as an entrepreneur. And to everyone watching, I want to thank you again for joining me for Conversations with Tracie L James. And as always, no matter what happens, just do it regardless. Zero excuses allowed. Take care. Have a great day, y'all.